So, did I win? Oh, what's good, people? Agent Jules reporting for duty. Some of you may not know this about me, but for the past 2 years, I've been training in MMA as my preferred workout choice, specifically starting off in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and then branching out from there. Why? Because it's cool. And honestly, because fighting is a universally valuable skill set to have. Also, it's because one of my favorite genres of cartoons, and entertainment in general, is action. And what better way to learn how to write action than to actually partake in it? So after about 1.5 years of training, I decided that back in January of 22 that I would try my hand at a local low-stakes Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu tournament in order to test my wares and give myself some first-hand combat experience. So, without further ado, buckle into your favorite dojo, tie up your belts, and allow me to regale you with the tale of my first BJJ fight. Let me set the scene. The year is 2021. I've been practicing at my local MMA gym for a good 1.5 years, starting to see some decent results in my fighting. And my professor, sometime in October, and yes, BJJ calls him professor, it's a Brazilian thing, informs me that his gym that he trains at is holding a local tournament. You see, this tournament has happened before in the past, but this is the first big comeback since ye old Winnie the Pooh and Rona 2. And so everyone at our gym was abuzz. And the question was asked amongst the students, will ye fight? Many who have fought before said yes. Some of our beginners who were looking to become fighters said yes. And then there was me, the hobbyist. And what did I say to this call to action? Yeah, okay. And so my training began. For those of you who don't know specifically what jiu-jitsu is, it's basically ground wrestling. It's that thing in the UFC where you're both on the ground and you're trying to twist the other guy into a pretzel and choke the dookie out of him. That specifically is jiu-jitsu. Now, after a good 1.5 years of practicing the arts of involuntary yoga, I started to get a bit comfortable fighting, particularly against those not as skilled or as big as me. But let me tell you, as soon as I made it known that I was training for a real fight, that changed. You see, in order to get me fight ready, the professor put a hit out on me. Every sparring session, he'd line us up and tell the bigger, higher belts, listen here, see? I want you all to put the squeeze on the old juicy boy over here, see? I want you to smash him into a fine pulpy drink of OJ, see? And so, with a fresh bounty on my beautiful bulbous skull, I had to fight for my life for the next 3 weeks. And oh boy, every fight was a struggle. Every roll sucked the air out of my lungs and burned the strength from my muscles. It was rough, yes, but honestly, I believe I improved more in those 3 weeks than I did in the past 3 months. I must admit, though, a bit of a Chekhov's gun here, that I had a bit of a concern about getting totally burnt out every single fight. But at the same time, I also felt more confident in my ability to handle constant onslaught, so I ignored that concern. And with that, I continued my hard training all the way up to the fight, except the week I had to take off because of aforementioned Rona, which kind of sucked and, you know, took the wind out of my sails a little bit. But regardless, the fight eventually came. Yes, that's right, folks. It was the big day, the big roll, the start of the tourney. Everybody was showing up, and for a small in-house event, it was quite packed. You see, there were multiple weight divisions with multiple belts, mainly focusing on the lower belts being white and blue. I sat around, watched the show, cheered for my fellow teammates. One of them even got as high as 2nd place in her division. But as the fights were going on, my mind was consumed with a particular thought. I was thinking about my first opponent. Whoever it was going to be an absolute stranger. I wouldn't know this man's background. I wouldn't know his family life. I wouldn't know his hopes and dreams. I wouldn't know his age or even his name. All I knew is that he would be a white belt, same as me. He would be in the over 200-pound weight division, same as me. And I knew that once I stepped into that ring, I would have only one job: to kick his ass. So, the big question here, did I win? No, I did not win. But I didn't get tapped out either. So what did exactly happen? Well, when the fateful moment finally arrived and I stepped onto the mat, I locked eyes with my opponent. He was a bearded brick of a man, that's for sure. He was shorter than me, but he was also wider than me. He had the gruff, hardened expression of a tough and weathered fellow, and I would clock his age about mid to late 40s. I also noticed that he had a bright red and white patch of the Canadian flag on his gi. So basically, I was fighting a lumberjack. Now, my first immediate thought at seeing this man was specifically how thick he was. You see, BJJ gis, being the big baggy pajamas of Kevlar that they don't really reveal the wearer's physique that well. So, as we approached, I was thinking to myself, this man is either really fat or he's going to be really strong, and I wonder which one it's going to be. Well, let me tell you, as soon as he put on those clamps on my lapel and yanked me down to his eye level, I had my answer. Okay. It's muscle. And so the fight was on. BJJ fights start in the standing position, and whoever gets the first takedown gets to collect a whole 2 points for the ordeal. So we did our little grabby, leggy dance to try to flip the other dude, but alas, I took a wrong turn at Albuquerque and landed flat on my back. But the battle was not over. It had just begun. So the lumberjack chopped me down and got his 2 points. But now he had to pass my guard, which means get past my legs. Granted, he had a hell of a lot of strength, but with great fortitude, I was able to outmaneuver him, hog tie my legs around his waist, and pull him into my guard. And that's pretty much the rest of the whole fight. We were at a stalemate, and this, my friends, is where the Chekhov's gun comes back. Remember how I said that during the training I felt a slight concern that every sparring match I had burnt me out? Well, here is where it reared its ugly head once again. I could not budge this dude for the life of me. Yes, I had him in my guard and he couldn't squirrel out of it, but he had his 2 points and he was hell-bent on keeping them over me. I tried everything I could. I tried sweeps, I tried guillotines, I tried kimura traps. I even tried the good old-fashioned cross-choke to garrote him, but man, I could not get it. My hands were burnt. You know that saying when you say my dogs are barking when your feet are really tired after a long hike? And you know how dogs are kind of bigger and so your hands are smaller than your feet, so I guess your hands, you'd call them your cats? Well, the point is, my cats were meowing. And unfortunately, the dreaded 5-minute counter ran out. And that was that. The lumberjack had chopped down another tree. And let me tell you, I was not happy. Don't get me wrong, I was a good sport about it, we shook hands, but I was not pleased with my performance. I felt I lost not because of technique, but because I was just too damn out of shape. And so I walked off the mat and stewed in my loss, but decided to stick around to see who would win in my over 200-pound division. Given the fact there was very few of us, being only 3, that means the lumberjack only had to chop down 1 more tree to get his coveted medal. And so when a second fight came up, I decided to size up the dude he was fighting against. And this guy, this new guy, was bigger than me and quite a bit younger. It looked like he was an early 20s fella. And wouldn't you know it, the lumberjack cut him down to size 2 and ended up taking that medal for our weight division. And you know what? That actually made me feel a bit better. I mean, at least I lost to the tournament winner as opposed to getting eliminated by someone who'd just get picked off in the next match. So yeah, I used that as an excuse to not feel so bad. So, what did I learn from all of this? First and foremost, I learned that physical fitness is paramount in combat. That's kind of a no-doy thing, but now that I've felt it firsthand, I'm going to need to take my conditioning and strength training seriously if I want to do more fights. But the second thing I learned, I believe, is much more important. You see, this was my first fight ever. Now, yeah, I've done schoolyard scuffles and shoving matches back in my day, but nothing like an actual competition where you and your opponent specifically train in the art of savaging another human being. It is a world of difference, I found, between training at the gym and even sparring with people I know and actually competing against a complete stranger who will fight to win. The energy is shockingly different. And now I have felt that energy. In a way, I didn't lose at all. I mean, yes, obviously I did, but I learned something, you see, something about myself. I learned that despite my loss, I am apparently athletically capable of quite a bit more than I ever thought possible, especially because I never grew up being a very athletic kid. I managed to do something I would have thought impossible in my youth. If anything, it kind of makes me wish I did wrestling in high school. But anyway, in short, I fought, I lost, and I learned. And you know what? I look forward to doing it again. But this time I'm going to work harder on my conditioning. And so there we have it. That is the story of my very first fight. And with all that said, I thank you for spending this time with me. I do hope you all stick around. And until next time, keep rolling, 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 and deuces.